All right, this is out of left field. This is episode America Still Voting Again, 2016.
The Trump awakens.
The trumpening.
Yeah.
More Trump, more better.
The caucuses, as they're called, are still going on.
Cockeye.
The cockeye. I'm still getting used to their Byzantine voting system.
System is a bit generous, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's more of a hodgepodge of it's like a mosaic patchwork quilt of differing ways of doing things and deciding votes, and every county does it a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'd expect this from a country that was 1,000 years old and had, 40 different languages inside of it, like some kind of Austro-Hungarian system of governance. But
no, that's just
America.
Yeah, I mean, it's really confusing, it's really convoluted, and I kind of just wish... I mean, I was about to say that I kind of wish they'd just get it over with, but then I'm also kind of terrified to see what the consequences and end result is going to be,
well,
so I'm okay with just waiting for now.
I hate to say I told you so, but, well...
Go ahead, tell me.
The statistical information available 6, 7, 8, and 12 months ago was essentially accurate.
You're talking about Hillary winning over Bernie.
Yeah. It appears that numbers still rule above all else. None of that soft, good time feeling, oh, he's such a great person stuff. Nope. The numbers don't lie, at least,
It is looking increasingly
part.
dim for Bernie Sanders, and I do shed a tear for that.
Yeah, he's just consistently not winning enough, and will...
Voter turnout has been really low, and I think the case has been that in the primaries where you had a lot of young people show out, he won, and the primaries where young people didn't show up in huge numbers, he didn't win. Clinton has a bunch of other advantages.
Sure,
but anyways, I'm upset about it. I wonder where all of that energy and that pent up enthusiasm and the sort of rush of support and young people
it's still there.
Haven't. Yeah, where is it going to go if he suspends his campaign?
Well, this is what I was saying when he started, and a lot of people were saying, "Hey, who cares? He's a socialist. Americans never talk about socialism. They're talking about it now. That's great, isn't it?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's great, but this is politics. He doesn't."
You were saying that they need to be building institutions and organizations.
Some kind of organization that'll last
past... Something that's not just going to peter out like Occupy.
Occupy or Obama's supporters as well, who...
Yeah.
I mean, in their case, I think they just got shit-canned by Obama after he won, and were basically just left to either support the Democratic Party in the overall election or just, piss off, basically. That's all the options available to them. That sense of greatness and glory and like this is a changed world and we have been a part of it, all that stuff kind of just gets put by the wayside as soon as it becomes mildly inconvenient. And the problem, I guess, with Bernie Sanders is that because I didn't really see his chances of becoming the presidential candidate as really all that good from the beginning, I could not really understand why he was seemingly not willing to build a movement, build an organization, build something, or to make the case for something. I mean, the usual refrain for socialists is, well, what America needs is, some form of a labor party, some kind of social democratic party.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be bloody revolutionary. It just needs, something where those unions have extricated themselves from the Democratic Party and are fighting for their interests in their own party. And honestly, I think in the case of Bernie Sanders, if he had made a case for that we would be looking at a situation where that seems like that would have worked.
So you think he kind of bit off more than he could chew?
No, I think that he should have made. I guess he should have done from the beginning, just made a case for something that goes beyond.
Winning this one election.
Winning the election, winning this, because this is the problem. He hasn't just done that. I mean, he's made a case for his ideas and that sort of stuff, but that's so abstract and convoluted and eventually pointless if you don't have some kind of institution, some force, some organization, some people who are willing to keep fighting for that regardless of what happens to Bernie Sanders.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens to that youthful enthusiasm that's been unleashed. Maybe this is the start of that. It's possible, and time will tell. I think I think it's likely that you're probably right. It will probably fizzle out, and people will just, get discontented.
Well, I don't want to be right.
But, well, sure. And so the alternative is that, the droves of young adults that have flocked to Bernie Sanders and have gotten into politics, for many of them for their first time, maybe they will want to start something new. And I hope they do. Okay, so Hillary is probably going to be the nominee. It's not...
Yes, when Bernie Sanders sinks, Hillary rises like a piece of styrofoam on a wave. As you might be able to tell from that delightful metaphor, I don't consider Hillary's rise to really have so much to do with her ability or charisma or general
ability to inspire millions of young people.
That sense of... I mean, you can say that about even Ted Cruz or Trump or most of the other... I mean, the candidates who lasted for more than a little while in the Republican Party, they all had some kind of cause that they could reasonably appeal to get people interested in them. I'm not an establishment character. I'm blah 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 whatever. In the case of Hillary, I just don't know what it is that... I mean, I know what it is that people will tell me I'm supposed to, care about. Mm-hmm. But politically, I don't see what's really all that inspiring about her.
No, it's more of a coronation for her, basically, where she's just this well-known, established, incredibly wealthy, well-connected political figure, where it's just, it's just her turn to be president, and that's what I think a lot of the Bernie Sanders supporters really dislike about her. Mm-hmm. And, in fact, the Democratic Party seems to be very divided in itself, and just of course as the Republicans are, but with the Democrats it's interesting because there was a poll where they asked a bunch of Hillary supporters if they would be satisfied or dissatisfied with if Bernie Sanders won. 50-50 basically, more or less. And for the Sanders supporters, a lot of them, I think some 1/3 of them, won't vote for Hillary if she wins. They're just, it's basically Bernie or bust, as they say, and they're just they see something new in him, and they don't see that in Hillary, and they're just totally not enthused about it. And in fact, if I was an American and personally involved in this process, I'm not even sure if I myself would vote for Hillary, even if she was running against Donald Trump. I don't know if I could bring myself to vote for someone that I find to be so disingenuous and part of the establishment. I hate to use that term.
The problem, I mean, you can use that term all you want, because the problem with Clinton is that, we're talking about someone who's that's all there is to it. That's the big selling point, really. Stability, right. Consistency, normality.
Yeah, you know what you can expect.
Yeah, Trump, who fucking knows? Bernie Sanders is crazy. None of it's going to work, But Clinton... You've heard of Clinton before. You know what a Clinton presidency will look like. It'll be just like it used to be, when everyone was happier, things weren't so crazy and unstable, and,
Unless, of course, you were a unemployed black person that got incarcerated due to the laws that Bill Clinton passed.
Or if you were living in Yugoslavia, or any number of other things we could probably go into. But I think that's the major selling point. So when you worry about, I don't want to just call her the establishment candidate again, what else are you supposed to say?
Yeah.
Former Secretary of State? I mean, that's basically just saying the same thing.
The thing that bugs me the most about her, I want there to be a first woman president. I want there to be a second and a third and a fourth woman president. This is a good thing, right? But
that'll take several centuries at this point.
But one thing that really bugs me about Hillary Clinton is that she doesn't seem to acknowledge that she understands how video cameras work. Okay? She will... There are things that she's said on record, on videotapes, on things that you can just search up on YouTube, that she just says that she didn't say. You know, like for like the classic example is that she didn't support gay marriage up until 2013, 3 years ago, and she denies this. She said, like, she was on a radio interview with someone, and she just said, like, oh, you're lying, like, oh, I never said that. What are you talking about? I've always been in support of gay rights. I've always been an active supporter of the LGBT community. And she seems to rightly acknowledge that most of the people that are listening to her at that given moment are probably not going to check and just take her word for face value, which, I can see that is kind of smart what she's doing. But it's like, Jesus, there's another case where she double and I think tripled down on a statement that she made about coming under sniper fire when she landed in some Eastern European country. And there's video footage of her, like, greeting children on the like coming out of the airplane and saying hi to everyone. And it's just obviously false. And then but she just says it anyway.
My favorite one is the one where she says that it was specifically about Bernie Sanders and how, I think it was healthcare or something like that.
Where was he in 1993?
Yeah, we were fighting for this stuff, and he was, I didn't see him. I didn't know where he was. Literally. And it's a speech about that topic, and he's just standing right behind her.
Yeah, and she says, thank you, Senator Sanders, for helping me pass this bill.
Oh, that's the best one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so
ridiculous.
Patently false.
Well, sure,
right?
but politicians always do that. I mean, particularly in the United States, particularly Democrats and Republicans, this is a simple thing to do. It's, that's a long time ago, and for someone who's been an establishment candidate, who's been, like, a character in politics for so long, the nature of their system is you have to be that disingenuous. You have to be maneuvering yourself, because if in 1993 or whenever she had been in favor of gay marriage, she would have been in, like, a minority of 4. There was almost no one who was in favor of that in the 90s. And it would mean you'd have to have principles that transcended the period in which you lived. And that's really hard. And in the case, particularly in American politics, that's generally been the quickest way to completely destroy your career.
Well, and that's the thing that makes me so upset that Bernie Sanders is probably eventually going to have to stop his campaign or eventually lose. Because, he has been a campaigner for civil rights, and he has been an ally of the LGBT community way ahead of his time. He is a true progressive. Is he a true democratic socialist like he says he is? I don't think so. I think he's basically a very progressive liberal, but I still agree. I think his heart's in the right place, and he has a tremendous amount of really good ideas.
Well, sure, there's the sincerity behind it that I'm definitely happy to see.
Yeah, and, when he speaks, it's kind of like listening to, like, a grandpa that's, gives good advice and has really deep, thoughtful insight on things and has experience and cares about people.
When I hear a lot of people complain about politics today, they talk about how, the ideas have been kind of sucked out and it's all personality, it's all image and all that sort of stuff. And all those people who complain about that, and then, I don't really agree with that sentiment a whole lot, but when I hear Bernie Sanders, it does seem like, yes, this is a guy from, like, an era in politics that doesn't really exist anymore. He's kind of like a man out of time.
Yeah.
And, there's a good and a bad aspect to that. On the one hand, it's refreshing in a way, but on the other hand, I mean, at the end of the day, what he is proposing are ideas that have been applied before and have eventually led to where we are now anyway.
Yeah, well, he's not. Yeah, like I said, he's not a true
socialist. But that's my problem with that. I don't. Yeah. It doesn't. I don't want every. Well, I would like it, but I don't expect every person on Earth to just be a socialist. Right now, do it. But the problem I have with him isn't so much that he's a socialist, but that he isn't proposing anything really new, and considering how well educated he is on these issues, well versed in them, I don't understand why he thinks that, like, FDR era politics will work, given that FDR era politics is literally, like, leads to where we are today. Like, I don't understand how rebuilding, like, Keynesianism or a welfare state will be a solution, given that we had that and it was broken apart. Like, it was not enough to defend us against the problems he obviously recognizes are there.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But he, more than any other candidate running for president right now, would be willing to try more radical solutions given any failures that would be presented to him.
Well, sure, but we're still talking about him as a plausible presidential candidate.
Yeah, okay. And so that begs the question, then, what would
So Hillary's going to win.
So if Hillary wins the presidency, what would she actually do? Like, she's using a lot of, rhetoric right now and just saying things that people want to hear. But, I mean...
Is she going to do what the Liberals did? In her campaign, tack to the left.
The Canadian
Liberals? The Canadian Liberals. Like, is she going to tack to the left and try to even govern from the left for as long as she can?
Well, no, as soon as Sanders started winning some delegates, she started adopting his language, right? Because she saw that that's what people want to hear, right? But her track record and her personality indicate that she is just saying what people want to hear all the time. So it's hard to tell what her actual presidency would look like, not unlike what an actual Donald Trump presidency would look like. I mean, both of them, in my opinion, are almost equally mysterious.
I guess. I do think that Clinton presidency is at least... The speculation is at least more straightforward.
Well, I wouldn't expect her to nuke someone in her first 100 days of office, at least. So
maybe. I mean, might declare war, but who knows these days. Depends on what's going on in those first 100 days.
I think Clinton would probably carry on the policies of Barack Obama and maybe be a little bit more aggressive with foreign policy because she is quite a hawk. I think she
probably who even knows
would maybe put through some piecemeal reforms and blame the Republicans for not being able to do anything.
Well, sure. I mean, even with Obama, there was the whole issue of backroom dealing with the Obamacare well before the final vote even took place. The proposal of, oh yeah, we'll have single payer, it'll be great. Socialized healthcare, and then that ended up being never actually one of the options being debated. It was always how the insurance scheme will work. Yeah, more than anything else.
You mean the insurance scam, but yes.
Well, whatever.
They don't... I'm sorry, but America doesn't have a healthcare system. They have a patchwork quilt of industrial-scale profiteering of human misery.
Jesus, Ben, when you say it like that, it almost sounds like it should be a crime.
Well, if you asked me if you should put people in jail for profiting off human misery and suffering.
Yeah, if it's
systematically ruining people's lives, then yes, I think that should be a federal offense.
Well, you could say that about a whole bunch of things. The war industry, healthcare,
bankers,
prisons. Where does it end, sir? Well, where does it end?
That's kind of my point. There's a lot of things wrong with society. So.
Sure.
And I don't think that just putting some people in jail will fix that, but we should at least not reward profiting off human misery.
I don't think putting Bernie Sanders would change a whole lot of that either. I mean, him being president would be great. Maybe.
Okay, the thing about Bernie Sanders is that he, with American politics, it's always a lesser evil situation, right? Well, I dislike the Democrats less than the Republicans, but in his case, there's someone that I actually like, and that I think would actually be a good president.
Maybe.
Insofar as his capabilities are concerned.
Oh, come on.
And would be most likely to do radical things.
No. The Republicans want to indict Hillary for the most trivial fucking bullshit. You don't think they would just go out of their way to just torpedo Bernie Sanders from the very beginning? He's not even Christian, Ben.
And he's not even Jewish either.
Well, yeah. That's
I mean, well, technically yes, but practically no. He is an atheist.
The cultural blah, blah, blah. Yeah, whole thing. Sure. It's more nuanced, but still, the major point is not Christian.
Not Christian, yeah. I was about to say it'll be interesting to see what happens from here, but...
It will be.
Well, yes, but I mean, okay, well...
Not in the Democratic Party, though.
Well, sure. But, Hillary will probably eventually win, and then I'll just say, fuck, wow, this is going to be awful.
Vote for the Communist Party of the United States endorsed Hillary Clinton.
Shut up.
I'm not lying.
What a bunch of yahoos.
Yeah, I know, right? That's a good way of putting it. But I was going to say, just throw your vote away. No, they don't even want your vote now. I don't know. There's probably some random socialist Party thing you could probably throw your vote into.
Yeah, and the Green Party in the United States is okay.
I wouldn't support them. I mean, it's always such a... You want to talk about political parties that I think are a scam, it's pretty much all of the Green parties everywhere. Well, there's something fundamentally disingenuous about the way that they're always like, well, you know, obviously we care about the environment because everybody cares about the environment. And then after that, it's always this hodgepodge of whatever. And then... But we're all the Green parties. We're all somehow...
Or something different.
Yeah, different. Yeah. And it's like, I don't care.
And then they... okay, well...
Well, I mean, yeah, but who would you vote for? I mean, it's Democrats, Republicans. You're not going to vote? Is that it?
Well...
If it was Hillary versus Trump?
You know, I don't have to answer that question because I'm not an American, so I'm not going to, because I don't have an answer.
I would probably...
I don't know what I would do.
I might spoil my ballot, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't not go to vote,
Okay, question.
Basically.
Okay, pop quiz.
Yeah.
If it was 50-50 exactly for Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and you were to cast the one ballot that would decide it, would you vote for Hillary Clinton?
Can I still spoil my ballot?
Well, you could, but
I would probably do that.
What would happen?
What would happen?
Okay,
exactly.
The Supreme Court.
There you go.
The
Smart guy.
It would be Bush versus Gore all over again.
No, then the Republicans would. No, wait. No, the Supreme Court has a guy he died. Right.
It's 4-4 now.
Oh
and so,
God. They would be balanced too.
And the Republicans are refusing to put through Obama's Supreme Court nominee.
Boy, this is one of those confusing once in 1,000 years kind of scenarios.
Shit.
What would happen? I don't even know what would happen at that point.
Well, technically, if the Supreme Court is tied, then it goes back to the lower courts. So who fucking knows?
Well, what does that mean?
I don't know. Their court system is confusing as their process of electing nominees for their parties. So
whatever.
They have different circuits and shit, and I don't even understand.
I would probably spoil my ballot, or I would probably look at some, you know. I might vote for some small sectarian socialist party that doesn't matter, but I kind of like looking at their policies would agree with. I might do that. I don't know.
What? So you're saying under no circumstances, even of the most dire, would you ever vote for her?
It's not that I wouldn't vote for her because the circumstances were dire. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump, really. It has to do with the idea, like, I take very seriously the idea of voting for somebody. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, there is an extent to which voting doesn't matter at all, obviously. That's sort of the system where my vote wouldn't matter. It's not like if I vote for Hillary Clinton, she'll do what I want. That's not how this works, even a little bit.
Yeah.
But there is this principle that, you know, when you vote for someone, you are investing in them the right and responsibility to act in your name. And I can't do that with Hillary Clinton. And I really, for the most part, couldn't really do that with the Democratic or Republican parties. I don't feel that either of them is a party I would invest, even just in principle, that right or responsibility.
Well, you know what they say, America has one party with two right wings.
Yeah, I know. That's the problem I have. It's not Hillary Clinton. It's not Donald Trump. I mean, it is them to the degrees that I deeply dislike both of them. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's more of I don't want any of them to be able to point to my vote, even just theoretically, as the, you know, justification for what they will end up doing.
One thing that really strikes me about the Democratic primaries are the superdelegates. Even just the name sounds suspicious to me, but really they make first past the post look fair. They are, I mean, in the final analysis, even if you take out all of the superdelegates, Hillary Clinton is still ahead of Sanders. She could still legitimately win this through the Democratic process. She squeaks
by, more or less.
Yeah.
It's within, you know,
a few hundred.
10-15%.
Yeah.
Difference.
Yeah,
but,
so she could still win just through public opinion and campaigning legitimately. But the fact that the Democratic Party has these like elite acolytes.
It doesn't really matter.
And she just gets all these, like, free points. And
it's not
the
free points for Clinton. The point is that those are people who have actual positions in the Democratic Party, you know, former important people, lifetime membership types, that kind of bullshit. You know, Democratic Party organizers, et cetera, et cetera. They get to vote at convention. Obviously, almost all of them are voting for Clinton because obviously of the people... Well, she's been in the Democratic Party and Bernie Sanders really hasn't.
He was an independent, yeah.
Yeah, so I can imagine plenty of them just don't like him for that reason alone. But also, you know, she's the establishment candidate. She's the person that is most likely to win. She's got the money behind her. She's got the organization. Yeah, and the institution is practically just ready to start campaigning for her the minute she wins.
Yeah, and I mean, the whole reason that the superdelegate thing was ever instituted was for the express purpose of situations like this, where you have an establishment candidate versus someone that the Democratic Party brass views as risky.
I don't think it needs to be nearly that Machiavellian.
It really is.
Well, I mean, in this case, it's as you said. She probably won't even need it. I think what it does is it's a fire break. It's like the the fire extinguisher. You're never going to use it. It's never going to be used. That's not the point. It's there in case you need it. The odds are it'll never be used.
But the superdelegates get factored in every time the Democrats...
Every time, sure, but so does a fire extinguisher. If you're like, well, you know, worst case scenario, what's going to happen? We always have this backup. We always have this thing that can make sure the end result is what we wanted all along. But we don't ever actually need to use it.
Normally, in most cases, I would protest this, and I would say that's bullshit, blah, blah, blah. But if the Republicans had such a fire extinguisher right now
they could have had. If any one of those other candidates had like a block of 400 votes that they could just sit on and gather up more votes through that legitimacy,
then Trump wouldn't be the front runner.
Possibly, but it's not like it's really that important, and I guess. A lot of politics does, in hindsight, does appear kind of conspiratorial or manipulated or orchestrated. But a lot of it is just people trying to make smart decisions, at least by their standards. And some of that stuff's ad hoc. Some of it is just things added in for the purpose of, making people feel better. Because I'm sure plenty of these important people who get to vote in as delegates. A lot of that stuff could just be given to them as one of the many privileges they get. It's not really even, necessarily ever going to be used, but doesn't it make you feel good? Doesn't it make you want to work hard to make sure the Democratic Party works? It's just the same way that the conventions themselves aren't even... There's this idea, it seems, in the American politics that you shouldn't have a contested convention. That by the time the actual party conventions occur... They should have a candidate already decided.
But that's
well ahead of time.
The whole purpose of having convention.
Well, sure, by our standards, where you're like, well, convention's where the final vote takes place. That's where the actual decisions are made. Limited.
And by ours, you mean Canada.
Yeah, Canada. No matter how limited the options available are, at the end of the day, it's convention that represents the party that is making the final decision. Doesn't always go well, doesn't always work, but that's like the absolute last sort of stand for democracy in any party.
And everyone gets to vote, all the party members
that something is there, that there's this thing there that will work. The idea, it seems, in America is that that's absolutely not how it should work. That a contested convention is too contentious and therefore is divisive and could be alienating to independents, etc., etc., etc. I don't know if that's true or not, because it doesn't actually happen all that often. Although, obviously I don't know if it was the last time the Democrats had a contested convention, but the most famous one was, in Chicago, where there were massive riots and huge, disastrous, event for the Democratic Party.
The thing that I'm most worried about, let's just say that it's probably the case that Hillary is going to get the nomination.
Yep.
I worry that there are plenty of Bernie supporters who are not going to vote for her. She has low favorability ratings across the country. People generally view her as untrustworthy and disingenuous. And she's also under federal investigation right now and could be indicted and possibly impeached if she does win the presidency within her first 2 years.
Well, let's start with the federal stuff.
So my point is that I worry that she will inspire a very low voter turnout in the 2016 elections. And every time there is a low voter turnout, the Republicans win. Because, and you saw this in the last state elections where they elected congressional and state representatives, Obama did not keep the momentum from his campaign. A lot of the young people fell to the wayside and couldn't be bothered to vote. And every time there's low voter turnout, in this case, the Republicans swept to victory in both the congressional and the state elections. And he hasn't been able to do jack shit in his last 2 years.
I know about all this, man.
So Hillary will not inspire droves of young people that helped elect Obama.
Probably not.
Is it possible that the voter turnout would be so low that whatever fucking candidate the Republicans barf onto the American public will just, go right into office?
Like whatever pus of a candidate happens to get squeezed out of the Republican Party.
Precisely. At this point, it will be Cruz or Trump.
Yeah, probably. Or the third guy whose name I can't ever pronounce or
Quiche.
properly remember.
Quiche. Well, it's like quiche, but
don't worry.
different.
In like a couple weeks, we won't have to ever remember or speak his name ever again.
No, he doesn't hardly have any delegates.
He actually needs, and this is true, he needs 105% of the remaining delegates to vote for him.
Okay.
to win.
Okay, but the question I posed, Clinton, low voter turnout.
Clinton's, look,
Trump victory.
Based on all the polls I've read, that seems to be sort of within the margin of error. It's generally pointing to Trump winning if Hillary Clinton's the candidate running against him.
Yeah.
Generally. Now, that's kind of unclear because the problem, I guess, is that with Hillary fighting against Bernie Sanders, she's fighting against a character who is basically the worst case scenario for the sort of political figure she is. She's an establishment candidate. She's business as usual. If you have somebody who's not business as usual and not an establishment candidate and willing to, point out that sort of stuff,
without corporate ties,
all of that will draw in all the people who hate that shit just immediately without any reservations.
Yeah.
If you were talking about a Hillary Clinton who was even sort of an outsider, I think that it would be substantially more difficult. I'm not sure how easily Trump is going to be able to play up that sort of stuff in the actual election. It's possible that in debates he might actually not be very good. I mean, Clinton certainly is not a great campaigner. That's been her major weak point throughout her whole career.
Yeah, she's out of touch.
You can say out of touch. I'm being generous here. She's an excellent politician from like an apparatic, bureaucratic standpoint.
Yeah.
She's good at doing her job and getting results and that kind of stuff. Following through on things from like the State Department standpoint, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
She's a good bureaucrat, a good politician in that sense. From the standpoint of campaigning, that's the weak side of things. Not very good at being charismatic, not very good at inspiring people, not very good at making a case for why, voting for me isn't just something you need to do, but something you want to do.
Yeah, that I have these grand ideas that I want to implement. I have a vision. It's just kind of... That's
the thing that I think is really that's really sort of promoting the low support that she might be looking at in a in the general election. I don't know really where that'll go with Trump. I don't really know where things will head with the Republican Party and how the two of them will be able to face off.
Well, I think a lot of Trump's support is just, a very angry, white, old part of the United States. And they are a loud minority, right? And they don't... The only way that they... this contingency could possibly win a general election in the United States is if everyone else stays home because they're not interested in it. And, the thing that I worry most about Clinton is that she would inspire exactly that. And Donald Trump, she is, all of her weaknesses play into all of Donald Trump's strengths.
Maybe. That's the thing. I'm not sure about that. He has
like 30 years of material to work with, and she's always going to be on the defensive. She's always going to be trying to play catch up. And, Trump will say, 10 or 12, things, some of which are true, some of which are complete bullshit. And she'll be just trying to refute all of them before he starts saying another bunch of bullshit, He is, in a way, a brilliant psychopath. And and I think that Clinton, without a actual platform and ideas and aspirations to bring people to her, is going to be laid waste by him. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that I don't know. I think that she, if we are at this point assuming that Trump is probably going to be the nominee for the Republicans, which hopefully is not true, but I think if that is the case, that she is going to really have a hell of a time trying to fend off his attacks.
Well, if Hillary can't stop him, do you think anyone in the Republican Party can? Obviously at this point, do you think Ted Cruz can stop Trump?
If the rest of the Republican Party rallies around him, maybe. But he's detestable for his own set of reasons,
Well, but that's not the point. I mean, if we're talking about the Republican Party now, the question isn't, is Trump detestable? That is a real simple answer.
For the course?
Yes, he is detestable. The question is that, is there a way for Ted Cruz to stop him? And with Trump, it's kind of interesting still because we don't really know what his, everyone's been talking about like that level of support, that ceiling of support that he totally will hit real soon, we promise. But we haven't seen him in a campaign where he is facing off against someone one-on-one. We don't really know if he can really get above 50%.
Well, here's the thing with Cruz is that he's kind of the evangelical Christian candidate.
He's an outsider
right?
too. Well, he's the Tea Party candidate.
Yeah, basically.
They're both outsiders. They're both people who fucked up the Republican Party, and they're both people the Republican establishment hate.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And I think that's actually kind of interesting because, comparing the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, it seems that it's the Republican Party that's just chock full of people who want to radically change politics in America.
Well, they had 16 or 18 people running for them for the leadership.
Some of them very well-seasoned politicians.
Yeah, and back in the Bush years, the evangelical Christians were a very important contingency within United States politics. They, some people would say that they decided elections. They were such an important voter bloc. And George W. Bush owes a lot of his success to them. But when Barack Obama was elected president, that was sort of the turning point in which their power sort of started to wane, and they started to become a less relevant bloc of voters in the United States. And so those same people are the main backers of Ted Cruz. And so this is sort of I think they feel like they wish it's their return to mainstream American politics and being an influential force, but they make up a dwindling part of American society.
Well, that and they're split. Plenty of them are supporting Trump. The problem is that I think with regards to sort of the evangelical wing of the Republican Party is that I think that a substantial number of them realized that they were being used. That, the whole question throughout, George Bush's presidency was that evangelicals are using the Republican Party as just a sock puppet for their interests. But it seems that in hindsight, it was actually the other way around.
Right.
That the Republicans were using the evangelicals to win elections. And at the end of the day, if it was inconvenient, they would ignore them. And in this case, they did ignore them. Now,
Okay, so the big question right now on everyone's minds is Donald Trump a fascist?
That's a big issue. Beyond the obvious question of whether he can be stopped, and probably not, is the answer to that. Yeah. Fascist. I actually was talking to someone several weeks ago about, not this, but about, like, what fascism actually is. And Trump came up, because, for obvious reasons, even then. And I was kind of ambivalent towards that question. I was like, well, no, he's just some rich asshole he's racist, certainly. He's bigoted, yeah, of course. And he's, willing to say things and be inflammatory. And he talks about, just destroying his opponents, etc., etc. Yeah, he's Mussolini-esque in his style, but fascist? No. That's a specific political thing, right? And Trump can't be fascist. But now, it's proto-fascist.
Well, that's the thing.
Like that.
There is a road to fascism, and Donald Trump is paving it right now.
But, okay, sure, he is definitely, this is looking real 1930s, all right?
That's what I'm saying.
But here's the thing. I still don't think Trump himself is fascist. He is, like you say, paving a way. But that's, I think, where it ends. Depending on where this election goes, depending on what actually happens going forward now, we might look at a Republican... If Trump even loses the nomination, we're going to be looking at a Republican Party that could split on this. He could even try to force a split himself. But certainly, it'll be a Republican Party that has a definite proportion of its membership and supporters that are militant and organized and willing to fight and violently fight in these cases.
Some cases,
their opponents. That core of people, ironically, the kind of thing Bernie Sanders hasn't been able to do, even when he's trying to. It's possible that Trump might have done, probably without even wanting to.
Wait, you're not saying that Bernie Sanders was intentionally wanting to get armed people on the streets?
No, I'm saying that both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump represent dissident factions within their respective parties. And that in the case of Bernie Sanders, I'm talking about a political movement that outlasts this campaign. And even with Donald Trump, I'm talking about that as well.
Right.
But in Donald Trump's case, it seems that the sort of movement that he is inspiring is one that is militant and essentially proto-fascist. And beyond him, I think that, once Donald Trump loses, if he loses, either the nomination or the election, that movement will not go away in either case at this point. I think it's been too legitimized, too obvious, too well established.
They're too fucking angry.
They're too angry. It's there already. It exists now, and without Donald Trump, they'll find someone else. And at that point, we could be looking at an actual fascist organization coming out of that.
With millions of supporters.
Well, maybe. It depends. But even, tens of thousands is a serious problem. And this is the kind of shit where there's not really... from the fucking Democratic Party, you're not going to get any fucking answers out of them.
No, and in fact, this is kind of like liberalism not seeing the limitations and the possibilities of the system that we're living under. Where they're living under the assumptions that, we can just reform capitalism, it'll just be better, and, there are bad guys in society, we can just do away with them, or ignore them, or vote them out of power, and everything will be fine. But there are really serious divisions in American society, and there are very serious class divisions, and there are also a lot of people that own a lot of guns.
It's not just all of that. That's true. They own guns, there's problems. And liberalism doesn't seem to be able to address that. But when you have, say, the Prime Minister of Canada being asked about a Donald Trump presidency and how he feels on that, and giving some ambivalent bullshit answer about how, we'll work with anyone, or, he's not my choice, but, he'll be the president. When we know that he's promoting racism and violence, and all of that is left just sort of unanswered and ignored by a by a person, by Justin Trudeau, who considers himself a progressive, presents himself as one, is claiming that he's not racist himself, and yet when presented directly with a guy who is racist, bigoted, promoting violence against his opponents, he has nothing to say. It's just some, oh, well, whatever, people are people.
Well, I think that Justin Trudeau's answer in that interview was probably motivated more by not wanting to give Donald Trump more attention that he has already given.
Who cares?
Well,
all you need to say is, look, I think Donald Trump is racist, I think he's bigoted, and I think it would be a bad thing if America elected him as president.
Okay, but if you are Justin Trudeau...
Of course you're not going to say that, because he's a liberal, and that's what I'm saying.
No, but that's not my point, is that if you are a sitting prime minister and you are asked about someone who actually could be the president...
What's the worst thing that's going to happen, Ben?
If Trump is president and Justin Trudeau is prime minister, and he has been on a record of talking smack about him, then he will serve to regret it. He is not hedging his bets. He was being cautious. You are correct in stating that the right thing to do would have been to condemn Donald Trump, but as a sitting prime minister,
so what?
With the possibility that Trump could be president, then that was probably the smart thing to say.
What is the good of having a prime minister if he can't be honest about this thing? How more obvious, how more explicit does the racism have to be before he'll condemn it?
Okay, but the United States is the most important economic relationship that Canada has, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
In terms of pragmatism, Justin Trudeau probably didn't have much choice.
I don't think this is even a matter of pragmatism. I just don't think that he had any real interest at all of pointing it out. That there was nothing he needed to do that there was nothing to gain from it at all in his mind. That's my problem with him. That's my problem with...
What do you mean it? What is it?
From criticizing Donald Trump. I don't think that Justin Trudeau had anything to gain from it at all. As a matter of principle, certainly I think it would have been a good idea. But he's sitting fine with the amount of support he has. Why does he need to, bother saying anything negative about someone else?
Okay, well...
And I think that was the reason. There's nothing to do with trade. There's nothing to do with the fear that Donald Trump will nuke us because we said something bad about him.
Well, that's a good question. Do you think if Donald Trump were president, would he actually nuke someone?
Oh, man. 2016, the year where it was a good question. Is the president going to nuke this or that country?
Actually, John Oliver did a really funny segment on... Basically, he said that the coronation of Donald Trump as president will be a hotspot for future time travelers to come back to try to prevent. Which I thought was pretty on point.
Yeah, I guess. This is the thing, though, is that when we get down to the brass tacks, the fucking, rubber to the road, whatever tired old, well-worn, as in well-worn metaphor you want to use, the question eventually arises, what is a Donald Trump presidency actually going to look like? Because given that Hillary Clinton's probably going to win, Donald Trump's probably going to win, and the odds are that Donald Trump can beat Hillary Clinton, what we're looking at going forward is a Donald Trump presidency. And God help us, I don't like the idea of any of this, but that is the probabilistic solution to the scenario we're in right now. What does that look like to you? What is his presidency actually going to be?
I think realistically,
yeah.
Well, the man does have very tiny hands. I think he would.
You know what they say about men with tiny hands?
Well, he refuted that.
Tiny gloves.
Publicly, yeah. Anyway, he would probably get into a bunch of pointless spats with foreign other countries. He would probably completely fuck up international trade and decrease the United States' standing in the world by a large margin. I think the OECD countries would probably try to increase trade between them and to avoid any dealings with the United States whenever possible.
The pariah nation.
Tech companies would definitely move offshore to countries with better laws on data and surveillance.
Sure, just not any of the big ones.
No, even with Donald Trump, who knows? Maybe they would. I mean, there all sorts of fucking dystopian shit is possible.
Okay, that's the
question that you pose.
That's the dystopian scenario, and I'm not surprised that's sort of your vision of the future, your prognostication.
And why do you say that?
I disagree.
Why?
I suspect, and this isn't entirely hopeful ignorance or anything like that, but I suspect his presidency would be not really all that amazing at all. I suspect that this is a man who has totally misjudged how powerful the American political system actually is, and thinks that being president of the United States is like being CEO of one of his stupid, barely functioning corporations. He has treated the presidency like it's being the boss of America, and that's how he talks about it. Yeah. I'm the greatest businessman in America, so I should have the greatest job in America. That's not what the presidency ever actually is. Yeah. It is a position where you are so isolated from all the hundreds of thousands of decisions you're supposed to be making, that you have to be relying on so many different people, that there's all this inertia behind everything you're doing.
You think he'd just get frustrated and throw a hissy fit?
Possibly, but I think that even to the point where the people, the fucking insulation around him would basically just operate mostly under their own effort, and not ignore, but kind of dismiss those hissy fits. Like, go, oh, of course he's president, he's an untrained idiot. You know, the Secretary of State, the State Department, those institutions that have existed for a long time.
Okay, Mac.
Will just go under their own
What you're saying is that there would be a group of people that, say, were armed and wore uniforms that were more loyal to Donald Trump than the federal government, and that his presidency would probably just lay the road to fascism. Maybe,
but I mean that's a bit more ridiculous. But
you could fucking write a novel about that.
You could, and people have. If you've ever read "It Can't Happen Here," quite an appropriate title for these days. Anyway, that was written in the 1930s too. But in any event, I don't think Donald Trump's presidency. Honestly, I don't think it would be a dystopia any more than George Bush was. Because people talked about George Bush pretty much the same way when he was running for president.
Yeah, but Donald Trump makes George Bush look like a moderate.
Yeah, but people said that about George Bush. And while he did all sorts of terrible things, the problem was, at the end of the day, it was Dick Cheney running the show. It was the people around him. It was all this stuff,
the inertia
that was already there, those advisors within the Republican Party that he was obliged to appoint.
Basically, your point is that Donald
Trump will be a George Bush, possibly more insane, and he will certainly have new tricks up his sleeves.
But your point is that Donald Trump, even his insanity, even his massive personality, can't transcend the restrictions of the American presidency.
Yeah, any more than they can transcend the two-party system at this stage.
Okay, but
it's so well established. It is the most perfect capitalist political system on earth. It is so effective at stifling any kind of attempts at changing anything.
Okay, well, here's the question. We're talking about Trump presidency. This is fucking conjecture at this point. If Hillary and Trump are actually squared off against each other, the Republican Party in recent history is seen as increasingly unelectable. They represent a dwindling minority of the American demographic.
Sort of.
Don't you think that Hillary would probably just
win by default? Because that's certainly what everyone was saying in the last election.
Well,
right?
I mean,
they were.
It was Mitt Romney thought he was going to win against Obama, and he got his ass kicked.
Yeah, and it wasn't even close. It wasn't even likely at any point in the stage. It was like if the media had been talking about Bernie Sanders being the probable candidate the whole time. It was that off the odds.
Yeah.
Like they were going, oh, it's it's a horse race. Who knows what'll happen? It's super close and there's no way to tell.
Yeah.
In fact, it was like, well, the odds were that Obama was going to win at every stage of that election.
Yeah.
Like, that was the probability of it, and that was what happened, essentially.
Yeah.
And similarly, it looks like Hillary Clinton's going to win.
The Democratic nomination.
Yeah, the Democratic nomination, maybe the election. But, I mean, now, I don't know. But, you know, a lot of talk's been made about, like, well, demographic shifts and stuff like that. I am shocked at how many minorities support Trump. I am shocked at how many women support Trump. I am shocked at how many young people support Trump.
I would say all those three things about Clinton, too.
Well, sure, but this is the thing, is that when we're talking about this next election, if it's Trump versus Clinton, it's going to be, because Trump's an outsider, it's going to have a lot less to do with the Republican Party itself, and a lot more to do with Trump being the outsider. And all of those people, all those minorities and young people, etc., who want an outsider, who want someone who will
they feel
mix things up,
yeah.
who will change the systems, even if it's just, you know, a bull in a china shop, just fucking up the, you know, Washington. Maybe out of that will come a better system. Who knows? A lot of the supporters of Trump now are feeling that. They don't like him. They think he's the kind of... He's like a missile that they're going to shoot at Washington. The options have been narrowing down over the last few months, and they'll probably narrow down some more over the coming few months. And by the time the election happens, I'm unhappy, I guess, at the end of the day, to say that it looks like the American political system is probably going to do what it generally does anyway.
So,
yeah.
Do you think it's about time to build a wall?
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? I think Trump's right. We should pay for it. In fact, I demand we pay for it, and we start building it today.
Yesterday.
I'll bring my own cinder blocks if that's what it takes, man.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm on an island, but, you know, you can't be too careful with those fucking Americans.